Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the Railway and welcome back to another review. Today I'm going to be looking at one of Britain's very final tank engines. So today's loco has been on my review pile for quite a long time. People that know I've got it have been asking me for it for a long while as well, so I thought it was high time I checked it out. It is this, the Bachmann BR Standard Class 4 tank engine. And as I say, this is very much one of Britain's final tank engines. In fact, the only one that I can find that was later than this was the BR Standard Class 2, I believe it was, from 1953. This one here, the Standard 4, was supposedly introduced in 1951, so pretty much one of the very last ones. Now, as a Bachmann loco, this one wasn't dreadfully expensive. It has an RRP of £135.95. I hate to say it, but by modern standards, that price for a loco this size seems pretty reasonable. I mean, Bachmann's latest E1 tank engine, tiny little thing, as you can see, was £5 cheaper than this. Doesn't sound too bad. Either way, I paid £89 for this from Hatton's, which to me sounded really good at the time. I've had this for a while. Sadly, I don't think they have any in stock anymore, but they do have some pre-owned apparently, so there is a link below if you'd like to pick one up. But for £89, I will be very interested to find out what this thing is like. I've had it for several years, but not actually opened the box. I know that is crazy. So let's change that today. Let's get it out and find out. So the more I'm thinking about the price of this, the more I'm thinking what a good price it really is. Now let's be completely honest here. Has it been a few years since they were sold at that price? Yes. Do I think that if Bachmann were to re-release a new batch of these models today in 2020, the RRP would be higher? Yes, I think so. Anybody that's been on Bachmann's website over the last year or two will definitely know what I mean by that. But no, I'm going to take this at face value for 89 quid. This can't be bad, can it? It can't be. So let me show you the end of the box. This is the version I've got. It's 32-353. It's a BR Standard Class 4MT tank, number 80135, and it is in the BR green with the Lake Crest, and I'm actually really looking forward to that because I really like BR green. I don't think I have very many BR locos, particularly tank engines, that are actually in BR green, so I'm really looking forward to that. And as you can see through the front of the pack there, it looks fantastic, really smart. I don't know how far this model dates back really. Could it be a sort of ex-mainline type thing? I don't really know if mainline did a Standard 4, but it certainly could have been from several years ago, so we'll see what the level of detail's like, I suppose. Let me show you the back of the box then. We have a brief history of the Standard Class 4 there. As always, feel free to pause and read that if you'd like to, but I will give you some history in just a second. Alright, well, my curiosity has grown quite a lot over these years, so let's get this out then and at long last find out what this thing is like. It's actually quite rare that I find a British prototype locomotive that I've not owned before, so yes, I'm going to try and savour this if I can. There it is. Okay, here we go then. Let's take out the blister. Alright, well, first thing, blister feels pretty heavy, and also there's a very hefty detail pack inside there with some head code discs inside as well, so the value for money is looking pretty good. Okay, so we have a exploded diagram, it looks like here, Class 4 empty, as you can see, and this is interesting actually, well it is to me at least, because you can see a little bit about what the mechanism's like. Yeah, it looks like the standard Bachmann setup really, not split chassis, of course, this does have pickups and even an 8-pin DCC socket. But yeah, it looks like a standard looking motor there from Bachmann. Not an awful lot to learn from that, but it is nice to see how the whole thing goes together and also comes apart. And then we've also got this, product maintenance and care. There we go. I don't believe this is going to be anything too shocking. Running in, cleaning and maintenance, lubrication, DCC. Yeah, all the stuff you'd normally want to look at. Product warranty, of course, that doesn't really matter too much because I think this is well out of warranty now because I bought it over a year ago. Silly me. Okay, let's get this out then. Let's slide off the sleeve and have a look at what is inside this hefty detail bag. Now, obviously, I've only had a cursory look at the instructions. I always look at them more closely, having filmed this segment before I actually test the thing. But I did not see anything about how to fit these details, of which you can see there are many. Now, some of them look fairly self-explanatory. I mean, steps, trial and error should carry you through that one. Head code discs, that's fairly simple. Yeah, buffer beam details. There are a few parts in there that I don't recognise, though, so I think someone stupid like me would be left confused by those. But I can see a really nice inclusion, which is the fireman's tools there, which I really, really like. What a nice thing that is. Modern locos, or at least a lot of them, don't tend to have that, which is a shame, I think. Right, let's give this a go then. Wow, this is feeling heavier and heavier the more shells I strip off it. Whoa. Wow. I can see pipework, and a lot of it. And I wasn't expecting it to be a really complex model for what I paid. Cool. Ooh, and it is heavy too. You know what, I might have to put bargain in the title of this one. I've not looked closely yet, but this, for the price, seems astonishing. Look at that. So, I mean, there's not a lot of bare running plate visible, but the part at the front, at the very least, is definitely made of metal. I can tell just by touching it that it is metal. And blimey, does it show. This loco is fairly substantial for its size, a good bit of weight to it, I would say. I'll weigh it and compare it to some other models, but man, it feels pretty good. It really does. All right, so I think this is going to go well, I hope. So we'll start off with a little history of the class, which I'll give you now, and then once that's over with, I will show you this thing up close and we'll figure out just what this is like. So the BR Standard Class 4 tanks were one of a handful of BR tank engines introduced in 1951. I believe the Standard 3 was also introduced in 51. Although they were listed as a Robert Riddle's design, the 4MT was heavily based on the similar ex-LMS Fairburn 264 tank, which in itself was based on a Fowler design. I think it was from 1927, so it dates back some time. The standards were not identical to the Fairburn tanks though. They were fitted with curved cabs and tanks in order for them to fit a smaller L1 loading gauge. Under the hood they also had a reduced cylinder size and hence an increase in boiler pressure in order to counteract that. But otherwise they were very much the same as those aforementioned designs, with no significant modifications being made. A 460 tender version was also produced, of course, which amazingly featured an almost identical design despite the obvious visual differences. During their short time in service, the class was allocated to all regions of British Railways and utilised for a variety of different tasks. As a relatively new design of locomotive, their withdrawal didn't come until the mid-1960s, by which time older designs had been retired. By 1967, though, the final withdrawal had been made and the bulk of the class had been scrapped, although a very healthy 15 have been preserved. So there it is then, the Bachmann Standard Class 4 tank up close and personal for you, and I absolutely love this thing. It just looks wonderful, doesn't it? Really, really smart, beautiful livery, and it's got a lot of curved edges, which I think gives it a really, really modern look. I mean, look at the side of the tanks there. Same thing goes with the cab, really. It just looks incredibly modern, which sometimes isn't a great thing, but in this case, I think it works really well. It's also very, very heavy. This weighs in at 327 grams, which is quite a lot, I would say, for a loco of this size. It is quite a bit lighter than the Fairburn tank, which is supposed to be more or less the same thing, but it is a good 50 grams heavier than the Hornby 4P tank, which actually was an incredibly powerful loco, so provided this follows suit, this should be a really powerful runner. A couple of small niggles to start off with though. The loco, when I first got it out, I noticed was absolutely filthy. I mean, look, I don't know if this is going to show up on camera, but we'll give it a go. You can see where all that pipe work is in front of the cab, very dirty, around the dome, a lot of filth going on, especially around the chimney as well, actually. Now, you do see that from time to time, because after the parts have been produced at the factory, they're often left sitting around while they're waiting for decoration, or perhaps to have other parts fitted to them. But you'd expect them to be cleaned before they were packaged up, because I'm definitely going to have to clean this, because I don't personally like my locos looking dirty when they run. Also, some of the die-cast isn't the best. If we look just above the front buffer beam here, you can see that we've got quite a lot of messy moulding going on there. I don't think that is dirt. That looks like it is just a bad messy mould of the running plate there. And there are also one or two messy areas of paintwork. You can see on top of that buffer there's a bit of black paint leaked onto there. And also on the lower chassis, you can see we've got red paint from some various other part, possibly the buffer beam, which is spread onto there, which suggests that perhaps a little bit more care and attention could have been put into the assembly of these, but generally speaking, the quality is really quite good. So let's take a look at some of this then. The paintwork, the decoration is really, really good. We do have one or two slightly wobbly lines, as you can see on the, well, just behind the smoke box there, but for the most part the lining, the pinstriping in fact, is really, really crisp, extremely well done, particularly on the sides of the tanks there. It looks fantastic. We've got the late British Railways logo there, which is looking really, really good, and so many aspects of the model have been lined as well. We've got the cylinders, which have been lined. The running plate, what you can see of it, has been lined as well, which looks beautiful. We've got the coal bunker with the classification and the running number on the side. It looks fantastic. And maybe this is a more modern interpretation because it's also got the warning signs for the high voltage electric power lines which would run overhead. Yeah, the decoration is fantastic. The only area really that lets the decoration down is the cab. You can't see inside the cab very well, so I will grant that, but sometimes just knowing that you have a painted cab inside, it has something going for it, I think. Unfortunately, the cab is just left blank with this one, which is a bit of a shame, but that's fair enough because the level of detail definitely isn't lacking on this model at all. So let's take a look at some of those separately fitted parts and just some of the various details. The pipework you've already seen is quite substantial, and one thing I do like as well in this area is the separately fitted safety valves, which are actually made of metal, which is really good. Less good in that area is the very obvious seam line that runs across the top of the loco. I think more modern releases would be berated for something like that, but I guess if this is a few years old, that's more or less excusable, certainly for the price I paid. Look at the top of the tanks, you've got all sorts of separately fitted pipes, wires, you name it really, really quite complex and impressive. Metal handrails on the side of, I mean, just look at the side of the smoke box, look at all those separately fitted components, it's very complex. The smoke box door itself has a lot of separately fitted parts. It has the lamp bracket there, separately fitted handrail. It looks as though the back part of the smoke box dart is just moulded on. It's not dreadfully realistic that, but look at this, the smoke box door actually does open, which is not a feature that many recent Bachmann logos have had, but this one certainly does. There's no detail on the inside of it this time, which is a shame. Sometimes they do actually have the sort of insides of the smoke box represented. Not in this case, but I do think that is a nice flashy feature, and it doesn't seem to have added too much to the RRP, which is great to see. The buffer beams look a little bit bare because obviously they haven't got the detail fitted to them, but most of it was supplied in the detail bags, which is great. We do have these buffers though, which are sprung. Let me show you that. There we go. Yep, sprung buffers, which is great. And around the area you can see we do have separately fitted lamp irons, little grab rails, and also a builder's plate there, which I will try and get a close-up on. Yeah, the level of detail is superb. The wheel set looks great as well. As you can see, we have relatively fine die-cast wheels. Some of the black paint has come off, which makes them look a little bit on the messy side, but generally speaking, they look nice and fine, as do the connecting rods and coupling rods, etc, etc. And as you can also see, the centre of each wheel, the axle rather, has been covered up nicely, which is great to see. It's a good quality touch, that. The area surrounding the cab is relatively nicely detailed, although we don't have any opening hatches on the top, but again I suppose the usefulness of that feature is limited, particularly on a loco without a painted cab. You don't want too much light going into the cab, otherwise it's obvious that it's not painted, so perhaps that was a smart detail not to include. We do however have nicely glazed windows, as you can see, which looks good. Pre-fitted cab doors as well as handrails around the cab, which are looking pretty fine. We have relatively glossy looking coal. I suppose it could be die cast. Bachmann do tend to use metal coal, which has got this sort of glossy finish to it. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think the stylised look of it looks good, and some people have said to me, you know, coal in real life did have a degree of a shine to it, so I suppose I do quite like that. And around the back you can see the level of detail is similarly very impressive. Lots of separately fitted metal handrails. We've got more lamp irons, more decoration, and of course another buffer beam with those sprung buffers. And we do have pre-fitted NEM couplings fitted to the front and back of the loco there. I mean, it's difficult to ask for much more really, isn't it? I suppose a painted cab would have been nice and a little bit more care in the assembly, a bit less dirt I suppose. But generally speaking, for the price I paid, £89, I'm shocked by this. It's really impressive, isn't it? Now, I don't know what the mechanism is like yet. I'm about to find out and convey that information onto you. So with that, I will have a look. I'll meet you back down on the railway and we'll give this its first ever test. So there she is then down onto the track, the very detailed Bachmann Standard Class 4, and again, I just think this is such a smart looking design, don't you think? Yeah, really good. So I had my suspicions, but a quick investigation on the mechanism confirmed that this basically lines up with other Bachmann locos of a similar ilk. It appears to have Bachmann's standard choice of motor, which I think is only a 3-pole. I couldn't see a flywheel or anything like that on the diagram. I took off the base plate and saw that we don't have any proper bearings on the wheel set. However, on the plus side, we do have circular slots in the chassis for the wheels to fit into, not square ones, so I suppose that could be worse. Also, this loco has been sitting in its box for a good few years, and possibly more before I bought it, so I did very lightly lubricate the bearings just to make sure that after at least a bit of running in, it should be more or less at its best. Pickup wise, it is just the driving wheels that have pickups, so we don't have any on the front truck or the back bogie, but hopefully 3 pickups going to each line should be enough at least to get some reasonably good performance. So let's give this a try. I'll set it forwards and this will be the first ever run. Not running yet, as I say, so don't expect the world, but this is how mine performs right out the box. Here we go. Little juice. Ooh, look at that. So we're seeing what appears to be a really good crawl. Now, Bachmann motors, they're only 3-pole, and I've had a lot of them fail on me. I'm not a big fan of them, but you have to admit they run well. At slow speed, that is very, very, very good. Let's try it backwards. Look at that. Wow. That is crazy. Go a bit faster. Oh. It did stop there as I was turning it up. Alright, so it sounds a little bit ropey. Possibly that's just because I haven't run it in yet, but it does sound a little bit unhappy, doesn't it? Hopefully that will get better as it goes. Let's see if I can... You hear that? We've got the tractor sound effect again. Yes, it's not the healthiest, and I can detect a little bit of a click coming from the valve gear, which frightens me very slightly. But no, the initial slow speed at least is really good. Let's have that again. Yeah, look at that. So it could have been maybe a bit quieter if it had a bit of dampening on the inside, or possibly proper bearings to stop the axles shaking around. But yeah, that I think shows promise, and like I say, with half an hour in each direction to run in, I think that could become really quite nice. Oh, has stopped on the express points though. Let's just demonstrate whether or not it does have flywheel capabilities. I'm going to cut it off. Oh yes, no deceleration there. Well, it was instant deceleration. No gradual deceleration, I should say. Okay, well, it's reasonably smooth. It isn't jolting along too much, so obviously nothing's catching, at least not too badly. So let's set this to medium speed and see how it goes light, shall we? Ooh, bit of a slowdown on the second radius there. So I wonder if this is going to be a bit underpowered, possibly. But it's working, that's the main thing. But doesn't it look beautiful in the BR green? I really do enjoy the BR green. You'll have to let me know in the comments whether you prefer the BR green or the BR black. I think both are very smart, but I think for me the green has to win it. Let's have another look at it on this second radius curve then. Ooh, yeah, seems to be there some serious friction there, slowing it down. Oh well, we'll see if it improves then. So I'll leave her running for 30 minutes in each direction, and I will talk to you again in just a second. Alright. Okay, running in has concluded. There we go. Good news is the performance is now better. It's a bit smoother, it's a little bit faster, I've noticed as well. Bad news, it still really struggles on those tight curves, slowing down quite a lot on them. Also, the general speed of the loco seems to fluctuate quite a lot, particularly as it gets further away from the power supply. Now that's quite normal with most locos with non-feedback power supplies. However, the effect is much more pronounced with this loco, which suggests that the mechanism perhaps is a lot less efficient than other designs. Anyway, I've deliberately set the camera up over the express points here, so I'm going to try that crawl again, see if it's as good as it was, if not slightly better, and see if the loco is able to cross the express points without a problem. So I'm not going to go too cruel and slow. We'll go there. As you can see, the slow speed is still fantastic. Perhaps it is fluctuating a bit at this speed, but it is maintaining movement, which is good. I don't think it's stopping. Okay, the first wheel, this is going to be tedious, isn't it? First wheel's over the dead zone now. All right. Still on the dead zone, coming to the end of it now. There we go, that's back on the metal as the middle wheel enters the dead zone. So we should still have connection there. Obviously the wheelbase is pretty wide. There we are, second set of wheels is coming to the end. Third wheel on there. Well, provided this doesn't stop just as I'm saying this, it seems that the reliability from the 6 pickups on the loco is sufficient to keep the thing running even at this slow speed. And to be honest, this is the worst case scenario by a long way, isn't it? Slow speed over an express point, it's not going to get worse than that. And it's done it. So that is really good. So continuity with the rails is fantastic. It's just a shame about that mechanism. If it only had proper bearings, it might be such a nice quiet runner, not slowing down massively on curves. But as you can see, yeah, I think the performance is noticeably a little bit better. So I'll talk more about the pulling force later on. It's not dreadfully powerful, I have to say. So I have just set up 6 coaches here, a mix of LMS and ex-LMS coaches there. So let's back the loco up and see how it handles them. Is it going to be even worse with a load? We shall see. Okay, here we go. Oh dear, it really is not very good in reverse. Did you see that? Man. Right, so 6 coaches, obviously that's not a lot. I have measured that the thing can haul up to, well, over 20, I think 23 coaches was it? You'll find out in a second. So 6 shouldn't be a problem, but let's give it a go. Let's set it to about 40% speed, not too fast. There we are, that looks quite nice. Branch line speed. And we'll catch up with that in just a second. First up though, I will show you what else is going to be running. So on the middle line, I'm going to be running the loco that, well, the Standard 4 tank was based on. It is the Fairburn tank, also by Bachmann, a very, very similar model. In fact, if you put them side to side, they're almost the same thing, really. They might even use the same chassis, I'm not sure. But as you can see, that is in an LMS black livery, so it looks quite different, and it's also got some LMS coaches. I must say the running characteristics are very similar, though, definitely. And then on the inside line, I have the tender engine version of this loco. Well, not of the Fairburn, of the Standard 4, of course. It is the Standard 4 460 tender engine. Very nice it is as well. Yet another Bachmann loco. So, see which other standard locomotives you can spot on the layout during the running session, and let me know in the comments which ones you see. Gold star to anyone that gets them all. Okay, let's see how it goes with Gordon's Hill then. It seems to be maintaining, well, it definitely didn't maintain it over that curve, but let's see how it goes on the top. I did retrack the top of Gordon's Hill, so the curve should be a lot less pronounced, but as you can see, it has really lost a lot of speed going up there, which suggests that it really does struggle with its own weight and just the weight of 6 coaches there. Very underpowered loco. It's a great shame. And I can show just how much friction there is on the system. Look at this, if I give it a little help, look how much faster the wheels turn there. Let's do that again. Ready? So in other words, the motor wants to run a lot faster, but it can't due to some sort of friction. Not all locos do that. You can try that for yourself. And of course, the fact that the Hornby 4P is so much more powerful than these, and yet lighter, 50 grams lighter, demonstrates the difference in the mechanism, really. Right, let's see it run over that second radius curve then. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't like the model. If you can pick one up for, like I did, less than 90 quid, oh, look at that. Then they're alright, but my goodness, they are underpowered. I might speed it up a little bit, because it's like going to burn itself out at that rate, isn't it? 6 coaches. It does look great though. It looks really, really cool. You do get a real sense of scale from this thing. It moves just like the real thing might, which is awesome. Hopefully you know what I mean by that. Yeah, it's just something about the way its presence, I suppose, on the track. It's very impressive. Yeah, I would say the tender engine works better than the tank. It's not much of a better mechanism, but in practice it does run better, I think. Just about. So here are some of my ratings then for the Bachmann Standard Class 4 tank. For me, I've got mixed feelings because obviously it's a really beautiful looking model, looks fantastic, and the price I paid was very, very reasonable. However, even though I didn't pay a lot, you still would expect a bit better performance, I think. Anyway, the level of detail, as you can see, I've given it 4-star. Yeah, the level of detail was fantastic. The decoration was absolutely fantastic. Tons and tons of separately fitted pipework and other parts, sprung buffers, you name it. The only thing I would really knock down is the cab, not particularly well detailed, no painted detail on the inside or anything like that. Besides that though, yeah, very well detailed, not bad at all. The performance isn't the best. I've given it 3-star, and possibly even that is quite generous. So, positive first, it does a great crawl. Straight out of the box, the crawl was fantastic. However, even having been run in, it still struggles on curves, definite slowdowns on curves, which are even more noticeable under load. Seems there's a lot of friction in the mechanism, which we'll get to in just a second. It's also pretty noisy and quite noticeably worse in reverse, which is a nice rhyme. The pulling power is okay. It is less powerful than the Fowler 4P and the Stanley Mogul locos like that you would expect to be less powerful, even though it's a lot heavier. Yeah, it's not particularly powerful, but then again, 23 coaches isn't too bad, although bear in mind that is only on straight level track. As soon as you start introducing curves, the loco becomes less powerful, and very quickly too. The mechanism then isn't the best. I'm not a big fan of this. No proper bearings on the wheel set, which do seem to cause great friction. Obviously those round slots in the chassis should help to reduce wear on the axles, but the contact area is obviously larger and the amount of friction there is increased as a result, I believe. Obviously 3-pole motor, no flywheel. For an RRP of £135, you would expect a better mechanism. I think it's just as simple as that. Not appropriate really, 2-star there, not very good. Which leads us on to the quality 2.5-star. Now some aspects of the quality are really good. We've got a lot of metal and therefore a lot of weight. It is a very sturdy model as well. Most of the details have been very well applied despite how detailed the loco actually is. However, unfortunately, we've got a few issues with the paintwork, wobbly lines, messy buffers, a few spatters as you might have seen, and of course the mechanism lets it down big time. A few bearings, 5-pole motor do not cost a lot of money. It's such a shame this one wasn't better. Value for money then I thought was pretty good. The RRP of £134.95 compared with most of Bachmann's modern offerings is very reasonable, and the price I paid £87 is very, very good I think for this. I'm a little disappointed still because of the mechanism, otherwise I might have given it a 5-star for that price, but yeah, it's not too bad. Overall though, that is 6.45 out of 10, a bit of a mediocre score really, and that takes us into the logbook. Where are we? 29th, there we are, above the 43XX and below the Mahano TGV. Yes, in order for this to have gotten a better score, it needed the better mechanism, unfortunately. So this is 50% speed now. I think that's quite a lot better, don't you? It smooths out some of the more dodgy performance, doesn't it? Like I say though, despite all the issues, I can't help but like it, like I say, so you'll have to let me know if you feel the same. Some people aren't going to like it at all because of the mechanism, I'm fairly sure, but yeah, I find myself enjoying it nonetheless. It's life though, isn't it? That is taste for you. So slightly disappointing overall, but I'd say if you can find one for the right price, about what I paid brand new, you know, £89, less than 90 quid, yeah, it's alright, you can't really go wrong, you're not expecting the best. If I'd paid 140 quid, I wouldn't be quite so happy, I probably wouldn't be quite so forgiving either. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. Have I been too harsh? Have I not been harsh enough? I'd be interested to know your thoughts, but for now, thanks for joining me, hope you enjoyed it as always, and I will see you very soon folks. Alright, look after yourselves.